They're here all week, friends, right? Morning, everyone. My name is Kelly Shushak, and I see some of you that I've never met before. I want to say a very special welcome to you. I'm the grateful pastor here at Edges, perhaps no more grateful than on a day like Easter. And for starters this morning, I just want to say that there's a lot I don't get about Easter. Peeps, for example. I mean, that is really just a gelatinous marshmallow. And Easter mascots, bunnies, lambs, chicks, all of these adorable farm animals. Until noon when we sit down to eat most of them. And egg hunts. I'm not talking the plastic ones y'all are having these days. I'm talking about the hard-boiled egg hunts of my childhood. So hiding a fresh boiled egg inside the toe of a cowboy boot, we did this in Texas. This is basically just stashing a tiny raw rotisserie chicken in the back of your closet with the knowledge that nobody's going to find that thing until you need to evacuate the whole house. There's a lot to not get about Easter. But really, we all know these are just diversions, pop culture additions, if you will, sugar-coated cover-ups for the real Easter story. Maybe there's a reason for that, because at this time, literally at this time on the first Easter morning, nobody was hoarding Peeps. Nobody was thinking about the Easter menu. Nobody was having an egg hunt. When the followers of Jesus woke on that first Easter morning, they didn't know it was a big, wide-open holiday. For them, it was just day 3 of still dark. Day 3 of the dizzying fog and grief. It was dizzying for Peter and for all of those who had just lost Jesus. You see, on this day, they knew their friend and leader had been killed. And if that wasn't enough, by now they really understood that everything he stood for, every dream he had offered to them, every way he taught them to see the world, all of it was gone. You see, before he died, they believed Jesus lived. You see, they actually believed that Jesus was God. This meant, among other things, that Jesus had become a permanent fixture. They thought he would stay with them forever, that lives would be the present and future tense for him. And they believed that until Friday when the earth gave way and he was gone. So that statement, it wasn't true anymore. It was false. Before he died, they believed that Jesus would stop corrupt power. They believed it because they saw him liberating their world from a corrupt and powerful government. Who doesn't need that? They believed that until the earth gave way and the corrupt powers killed him. So corruption won. It wasn't a true statement. It was false now. Before he died, they believed that Jesus would end oppression and injustice inside the church. It was the oppression and the injustice inside the church that killed him. They believed it because they saw him turning over tables, literally, the tables of oppression and the tables of injustice, even and especially the kind the religious establishment was wielding. But the earth gave way, and the religious establishment did not stand up for him. So it wasn't true. It was false. Before he died, they believed love always prevails. They believed it because they had begun to see that love was enough, that love would always win, until the earth gave way. And hate and fear and control got the last word. You see, really, it was fear that killed him, and now it was fear that filled them. So it wasn't true. Love had evaporated. It was false. You see, on that Easter morning, all of it seemed false. Jesus and his way of life were dead. It all started so dark again that day. So in that exact space, there were these 3 women. 3 broken-hearted, hope-shattered women who just had to do something. They had to find a way to grieve all that loss. And so they walked together to his grave, to a tomb in the side of a hill that had been closed with a rock. And when I read that story, it sounds to me like more than anything, they just needed to be near him. I'd like for us to read it again this morning from Mark chapter 16, verses 1 through 7. Would you listen? So when the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they could go and anoint Jesus' dead body. Very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise, they came to the tomb. And they were saying to each other, "Who's going to roll the stone away from the entrance for us?" But when they looked up, they saw that the stone had been rolled away, and it was a very large stone. So going into the tomb, they saw a young man in a white robe seated on the right side, and they were startled. But he said to them, "Don't be alarmed. You're looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. But he has been raised. He isn't here. Look, here's the place where they laid him. So go, tell his disciples, especially Peter, that he is going ahead of you into Galilee, and you will see him there just as he told you." So the young man in white tells them that Jesus has been raised, that Jesus lives. And the young man says he is so alive that he didn't even wait for them. He's gone on ahead of them, verse 7 says, to Galilee. So he's already gone back to where their lives have been in motion, ahead of them. So if that messenger is telling the truth, if it's true that Jesus lives on Easter morning, then it's false that Jesus is dead. But get this, if that first statement really is true, then so are all the others. If it's true that Jesus lives, then this means that all the corruption in the world couldn't actually kill him. So it's true that Jesus really does live to stop corrupt imperial power. That young angel just told them that Jesus was already ahead of them in the political gridlock where they live, working on this. And if it's true that Jesus lives, then it's true that Jesus will actually end all the exclusivity and all the anti-gospel messages coming from inside the church. This is the church that nearly destroyed him. But if it's true that Jesus lives, then it's true that Jesus is already ahead of them, reshaping and reclaiming the church that he began. And if it's true that Jesus lives, then it's true he lives to reclaim a warped church. And if it's true that Jesus is alive, it's also true that love really is forever. And it's especially true for the Peters among us. Did you see it in verse 7? Go, tell his disciples. Who? Especially Peter, the one we've been talking about for all of Lent, that he is going ahead of you into Galilee. So the angel says the message is true, especially for him. If Jesus lives, it's true that Jesus lives to keep on offering life and love and hope to the one among us who doesn't always know how to accept it. To the one who's been full of doubt, Jesus lives especially to love that one. If all that was true on the first Easter, if Jesus really is alive, then this must be what he's also up to right now. Now, I think there's no time like Easter to ask what is perhaps the riskiest questioning sequence of all of 2019. So here we go. Ready? If Jesus is not dead, then he is right now working to stop corrupt imperial power wherever it exists. Here's the question. Where in the world? I'm asking for places here, not people. Where in the world is a living Jesus needed to stop corrupt political power? Go, call some places out. In D.C., in Venezuela, in China and, North Korea, in Blacksburg, in Syria, in Yemen. Did someone say something? In Iran. In Brunei. In Iraq. In Russia. In Myanmar. In Washington. In the whole world. Probably going to need somebody living for that, aren't we? If Jesus is not dead, then wherever governments or groups wield political power that is harmful, Jesus is on that scene working to topple the corruption. So whether it's at the border in South Texas, whether it's at the state of emergency in Sudan, whether it's in the bus killings in Pakistan, Jesus lives to turn off the corrupt power differential. Jesus lives to heal the world, and he has gone ahead of us, the angel suggests, and it is ours to go and join him. Because if the risen one rose with this purpose. And if Jesus is not dead, then Jesus is right now ahead of us, working to turn down the volume of the church's warped messages too. To correct the theology that has always struggled to represent him. Where is there oppression and injustice in the church that only a living Jesus could fix? Let me give you a moment to think about that. Where is there oppression and injustice in the church? Because that's where it was when he was killed. Where is that oppression that only a living Jesus could fix? Go ahead. Where do you see it? Equal rights. Policies of exclusion. Wealth disparity. In human trafficking. In the prosperity gospel. In racial prejudice. Wherever the church has it wrong. And we can just bet that Jesus sees places we don't even know about yet. Wherever we have it wrong, Jesus is working right now to end the systems of power and privilege and oppression that have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups with particular identities and ages and abilities and histories. Jesus lives to show the church that we can't get rid of God's dreams even when we crucify them. If the risen one is real, then the risen one rose with this purpose. And if Jesus is not dead, then he is right now ahead of us, working to love us toward life. Where is a loving, never leaving Jesus needed, especially in your own life? We're not going to call that one out. I'll just give you a moment to think. Where is a loving, never leaving Jesus needed? Especially Peter, especially Cassidy, especially Joey, especially you in your own life. Because if Jesus is not dead, then he is working, especially right now, for those of us who are like Peter, who are covered up in guilt and shame and darkness. Jesus is alive for those of us who cannot find our footing, both because of what we've done and because of what's been done to us. Jesus is working to right that. Jesus lives to make good on his promise that nothing can stop him from showing up on the scene to replace what's wrong with us and what wrong has happened to us with love and life. Jesus lives to do that for us. So if Jesus is still alive this Easter, then every broken place in the whole world, every news story on television, every church that has it wrong, every family that is warped, every person that can't see the light, every place where the earth has given way, the risen one is living right there, working gently, slowly, permanently, to end the darkness by the steadfast love of God. If there is Easter, that's it.